Joe Christopher, Jeremy Plunk with another edition of Night School, and this time we're going to talk about pedigrees and how we utilize them in our handicapping. Every horse has a mother and a father, and they've got aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, and they're all bred to do something.
They are, and sometimes they don't cooperate with what the family would like them to do, just like we don't here in the human race. But most horses will run close to their pedigree, or at least be pointed in the right direction based on their gene pool. Not all trainers necessarily agree with that, but certainly at the sales ring, that's what they're looking for when it comes to a selling price.
Well, they've got sires that stand for 2,500, 5,000, 10,000. They cover, 40 mares a year roughly? And those mares have a certain pedigree. It's interesting to see how those pedigrees match up and what baby eventually winds up becoming as they mature into a racehorse.
Yeah, and the way the sales are now, I mean, the horses and the pedigrees a lot of times are made for the sale. How good is this horse going to look as a yearling? How good is this horse going to look as a 2-year-old when they have to breathe? So they're not necessarily bred to be 4-, 5-, and 6-year-old racehorses a lot of times here in America, and that's part of the reason why pedigree handicapping is a little tricky nowadays, because if you're looking for a horse with pure router's blood, there aren't a whole lot of them out there, and if you're looking for a horse who's got a good win-early pedigree, you're going to find a lot of races where there are many of those options.
So how do we apply this to our handicapping then? We see a youngster maybe with turf route pedigree, at least in our minds. We research the mare, we research the family, and think to ourselves, okay, this horse is eventually going to be better on turf, but yet they're starting out in a dirt sprint race off fast workouts. There's so many different ways to try to determine how that pedigree is going to influence your handicapping.
Well, that's absolutely right. You can only use a generality, you know? I mean, if a horse is generally built to be a sprinter or bred to be a sprinter, that's what you're looking for. And most horses are going to debut at the short distance. Very few horses are going to debut at a long distance. And most of the times when you see a horse in a debut at a long distance, it's not necessarily because of pedigree, it's because the trainer thinks they're slow in the morning and they need that distance. So don't get overwhelmed by a horse's pedigree stretching out and running long in the very first career start. A lot of times that's an agent of necessity. But the horses with the sprint pedigrees who are made to win out of the box and bred to win out of the box, those are the kind you're looking for, and the list of those horses grows by the year because there are more and more horses bred to be win early types.
And you like to see what the mare did during their racing career and what the siblings have done, what surfaces they've flourished over and what distances they flourished over. A lot of times if you research the pedigrees, you can find that hidden gem at 10-1.
Yeah, and the pedigrees are important on dirt, on poly, on turf, but they're all different. And you want to know who are your good dirt sires and your good sprint sires and your poly and also your turf sires. You know, separate them, get a feel for them, and get a feel for them on your circuit. We're not just talking about national horses knowing that Smart Strike is a great sire on the turf. I mean, if you're handicapping in Louisiana and Louisiana bred races, that's not going to help you a lot to know those kind of things. So follow what's going on. Keep track of who wins races. That's the simplest thing you can do. You know, there are a lot of pedigree services out there and a lot of products you can buy, but nothing beats the old noodle for something you've seen and you've seen happen over and over again. If you watch 5 straight Louisiana bred races, there have been a lot of horses sired by the same sire and they've been running pretty well. Keep an eye on that horse moving forward as a sire and try to find horses on your individual circuits that fit that mold.
That makes great sense because I know in Illinois, I see pedigrees. I've seen all of those mares run. I know what they were capable of doing outside of the race record, which can only tell you so much. You've seen them visually, you know what they were capable of, what they did well in their careers. Maybe that will transform and move over to their sons and daughters as well. It's always interesting utilizing pedigree in your handicapping.
It is. It's a small portion of the big picture, I think. Very few plays would be made almost 100% on pedigree. It's a very specialist kind of thing. If I see a horse sired by Tail of the Cat running on the poly track at Keeneland, maybe I make that an automatic play because I've just seen so many of those run well in sprints there. But again, few and far between plays should be strictly based on pedigree. It should be in that 10 to 20% of your handicapping arsenal. And if you're not a pedigree player, I don't think you're leaving yourself completely short. I think there are a lot of ways to play the races that don't involve pedigree, and you can still be pretty effective as a horse player.
To learn more about pedigree handicapping, stay tuned for this edition of Night School.
I'm Harvey Bell with Three Chimneys Farm.
Catherine Wheeler with Royal Pegasus.
Zach Madden from Three Chimneys Farm.
And welcome to Night School.